Welcome to an exploration of the modern psyche. Look around you today. We live in an era of unprecedented connectivity. We can speak to anyone across the globe in a fraction of a second. Yet, beneath this glossy surface of technological triumph, a quiet crisis is unfolding. People are noticeably angrier, anxiety rates are skyrocketing, and our social fabric feels thinner than ever. To understand why, we have to look at globalism, not just as an economic system of trade, but as a massive force of social engineering. You might call it social socialism. While economic globalism champions free markets, social globalism does the exact opposite. It enforces a rigid, top-down homogenization of human culture, values, and language. It strips away the unique, organic traditions of local communities and replaces them with a standardized, hyper-regulated set of universal behaviors. We are being molded into a singular global collective, and it is breaking our human spirit. When we talk about this social socialism, we are talking about the bureaucratic management of daily life. In the past, human values and social rules were built from the ground up by families, neighborhoods, and local cultural heritages. These institutions gave people a deep sense of identity, belonging, and responsibility. Globalism, however, views these local distinctions as obstacles to efficiency. To create a seamless global market, human beings must be standardized. This means eroding traditional roles, blurring cultural boundaries, and replacing organic moral frameworks with a corporate, state-approved monoculture. This is where the parallel to social socialism becomes undeniable. It is a system where a distant, centralized elite dictates what is socially acceptable, how we should communicate, and what we are allowed to value. The individual is detached from their immediate community and hooked directly into a giant, impersonal global machine. The primary casualty of this global social engineering is the quality of human relationships. Human beings are biologically wired for small-scale, deep social interaction. We evolved to thrive in tribes, villages, and close-knit neighborhoods where everyone is accountable to one another. Globalism fundamentally disrupts this by promoting an extreme form of atomization. It tells us that we don't need our neighbors because we have global networks. It replaces face-to-face community with screen-mediated interactions. As a result, we are witnessing a catastrophic collapse of what sociologists call third places. The physical spaces like churches, local pubs, and community halls where people used to gather organically. Without these spaces, our interactions become entirely transactional. We view the people physically around us not as neighbors, but as strangers or competitors. This profound isolation is the root cause of the modern mental health crisis. This isolation breeds a very specific kind of toxic energy, chronic aggression. When people are stripped of an organic community and a stable sense of identity, they feel deeply unsafe. Psychologically, isolation triggers a perpetual state of low-level fight or flight. To compensate for the lack of a real-world tribe, people turn to the digital world. But online spaces are designed to monetize outrage. Without the grounding effect of face-to-face accountability, human communication degrades rapidly. We become hyper-reactive, quick to anger, and deeply intolerant of nuance. The aggression we see on our streets, in our politics, and on our screens is the direct byproduct of a society that has lost its emotional anchors. We are angry because we are lonely, and we are lonely because the globalized structure of our lives has systematically dismantled the very structures that used to keep us connected, safe, and emotionally balanced. This brings us directly to the concept of societal decadence and degeneration. Decadence is often misunderstood as mere luxury, but historically, cultural decadence means the loss of a society's animating purpose. It happens when a civilization forgets its core values and duties, turning entirely inward towards self-absorbed gratification. Social globalism accelerates this decay by transforming citizens into mere consumers. When traditional duties, to family, to community, to a shared heritage, are dismantled in favor of universal global values, what is left? Only the individual and their immediate desires. A decadent society is one that prioritizes comfort over character, short-term pleasure over long-term stability, and superficial optics over deep truth. We see this degeneration in the breakdown of family stability, the decline of civic participation, and a widespread cynicism toward anything that demands sacrifice or discipline. Why is this trend so incredibly dangerous for us? Because human civilizations cannot survive on hyper-individualism alone. A society is not just a collection of atomized economic units living in the same geographic area. It is a covenant across generations. When we trade deep, demanding human relationships for shallow, globalized connections, we lose the capacity for collective resilience. An unhappy, aggressive, and fractured population cannot build stable environments for children to grow up in. It cannot maintain the trust required for a functioning legal or political system. Instead, it becomes highly vulnerable to manipulation. A population that relies entirely on centralized state structures or corporate entities for its sense of validity and survival is easily controlled. The social decay we are witnessing is not a temporary phase. It is the slow, steady unraveling of the foundational conditions required for human flourishing. Furthermore, this global monoculture creates an intense spiritual vacuum. Humans need meaning. We need to feel that our lives matter to a specific group of people in a specific place. Globalism tells us that we are all citizens of the world, which functionally means we are citizens of nowhere. By diluting our specific cultural identities into a bland, universal average, it deprives us of the myths, stories, and rituals that historically gave human life its color and gravity. In trying to make everything inclusive and uniform, it has made everything flat and meaningless. The rising rates of depression and existential despair are the predictable results of this vacuum. People are realizing, consciously or unconsciously, that a life lived entirely through global trends, corporate catchphrases, and algorithmic feeds is entirely hollow. We are starving for authenticity in a world made completely synthetic. This spiritual vacuum leads directly to the final stage of cultural subversion, total demoralization. Demoralization is the psychological conditioning of a population to the point where they lose their baseline grip on objective reality. When globalist systems continuously feed people contradictory narratives, police their speech, and isolate them from organic truth, it creates a state of learned helplessness. People become so fundamentally demoralized that they can no longer distinguish between genuine virtue and corporate optics, between biological reality and manufactured dogma. Even when presented with clear evidence of societal decay, a demoralized population is incapable of processing it. They simply sink deeper into cynicism, apathy, and compliance. They surrender their critical thinking to the very centralized authorities causing their misery. At this stage, the society is completely paralyzed. It has lost the moral stamina, the shared truth, and the psychological health required to self-correct. This brings us to a harsh, unavoidable truth about our future. When a society reaches this level of deep demoralization, widespread aggression, and systemic decay, the path out will not be a peaceful transition. History shows us that top-down engineered systems never voluntarily dismantle themselves, nor do deeply atomized populations quietly wake up and vote their way back to sanity. The current trajectory is too rigid, and the internal pressures are building too high. The resolution to this globalist experiment will not involve gentle compromises, soft policy shifts, or a quiet return to local community life. Instead, the exit path will be defined by turbulent upheaval, systemic shocks, and a chaotic collapse of the existing order. It will be a jarring, non-peaceful restructuring of reality, a hard historical reset forced by the sheer weight of our own societal decadence. The illusions of the global monoculture will shatter. Prepare yourself not for a smooth correction, but for the storm that inevitably breaks the machine. Thank you for listening.